revealing itself through his actions, his consistency, his effort, and his unwavering desire to keep building a connection that has become one of the most meaningful parts of his life. And this is where many people miss what is actually happening. They spend so much time looking for dramatic proof that they overlook the quieter evidence unfolding right in front of them. They wait for a grand declaration, a perfect speech, a life-changing moment. But the truth is that deep emotional attachment is often revealed through ordinary moments, repeated consistently over time. When a man secretly sees someone as the love of his life, his feelings begin influencing countless decisions throughout his day, not because he is forcing himself to think differently, because emotional significance naturally changes perspective. One of the clearest examples of this is the way he begins prioritizing connection. Think about how people treat things that truly matter. They make time for them. They protect them. They invest in them. They nurture them. Relationships are no different. When someone becomes deeply important, maintaining connection stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like a natural priority. This doesn't mean he suddenly has unlimited free time. Life remains busy. Responsibilities remain real. Challenges still exist, but even within those realities, he finds ways to stay connected. A message, a call, a thoughtful check-in, a conversation at the end of a long day. These actions may seem simple, but they reveal something powerful. They reveal intention. And intention is often one of the strongest indicators of emotional investment. Another sign that feelings are deepening is that he begins seeing the relationship as a source of strength. Healthy relationships provide more than companionship. They provide support, perspective, encouragement, stability. When a man secretly sees someone as the love of his life, a connection often becomes a place where he feels understood, a place where he can be himself, a place where he feels accepted. This emotional safety is incredibly valuable because in a world where many people feel pressure to constantly perform, being understood without performance becomes rare, and people naturally grow attached to what makes them feel genuinely seen. There is another shift that often happens. He begins celebrating the relationship itself, not just special occasions, not just milestones. The relationship, the conversations, the shared experiences, the simple moments. When emotional attachment grows, appreciation grows alongside it. He starts recognizing the value of things he may have once taken for granted. A meaningful conversation becomes important. A shared laugh becomes memorable. A quiet moment becomes significant. Because emotional significance transforms ordinary experiences into meaningful memories. Another powerful sign is that he becomes more intentional with trust. Trust is one of the most valuable things any relationship can possess. Without trust, connection struggles to grow. With trust, emotional intimacy becomes possible. When someone deeply values a relationship, trust becomes something worth protecting. He becomes more reliable, more transparent, more aware of how his actions affect the connection. Because the relationship has become too important to risk through carelessness. This awareness often reveals itself in subtle ways, following through on promises, communicating clearly, taking responsibility when mistakes happen, not because perfection is possible, because preserving trust matters, and when trust matters, effort follows. There is also a growing desire to create positive experiences together. Emotionally attached people often become memory builders. They seek moments that strengthen connection, not necessarily extravagant moments, meaningful moments. Experiences that create stories. Experiences that create laughter. Experiences that create emotional history. Why? Because emotional attachment naturally motivates people to deepen bonds. Every meaningful experience becomes another layer in the foundation of the relationship. And over time, those layers create something incredibly strong. Another revealing sign is that he begins paying attention to how you see yourself. This is important. Attraction often focuses on how someone appears. Emotional attachment focuses on how someone feels. He notices when you're doubting yourself. He notices when you're being too hard on yourself. He notices when you're overlooking your own strengths. Because he cares, he often wants to remind you of qualities you may not fully appreciate in yourself. Your resilience, your intelligence, your kindness, your courage, your growth. This desire to uplift is often rooted in genuine emotional investment, because when someone matters deeply, their confidence and well-being matter too. There is another fascinating shift that occurs when feelings become stronger. He starts measuring success differently. Success is no longer only about personal achievements. The quality of the relationship becomes important too. How connected you feel, how supported you feel, how understood you feel. These things begin carrying emotional weight. Because when someone becomes central to your emotional world, their experience of the relationship starts mattering deeply. And this creates a new level of intentionality. He becomes more aware, more thoughtful, more invested. Another sign is that he becomes increasingly comfortable showing his authentic self. At the beginning of many relationships, people naturally present their best side. They want to make a positive impression. They want to be liked. But emotional attachment gradually removes the need for constant performance. He becomes more relaxed, more genuine, more authentic. He feels comfortable sharing flaws, imperfections, and vulnerabilities because the relationship has become a place of trust. And trust creates freedom. Freedom to be fully known. This is one of the deepest forms of emotional intimacy. Because true connection is not built on perfection. It is built on authenticity. There is also a greater willingness to adapt. Every meaningful relationship requires adjustment. Different personalities, different communication styles, different needs, different perspectives. When someone is emotionally attached, they often become more flexible, more willing to learn, more willing to grow, more willing to improve. Not because they are changing who they are, because they value the relationship enough to make room for growth. Growth becomes a sign of investment, and investment reveals significance. Another important sign is that he starts noticing absence differently. When someone becomes deeply important, their absence creates awareness. A conversation he wishes he could share. A moment he wishes you were present for. An experience that feels incomplete without telling you about it. This isn't about dependency. It's about emotional presence. The relationship has become meaningful enough that its absence is felt. And often, people discover the depth of their feelings through these moments. They realize how much someone means to them when they notice how much they miss their presence. There is also a growing desire to support your future, not just your present, your future, your goals, your dreams, your ambitions, your growth. A man who secretly sees someone as the love of his life often wants to see that person thrive. He wants success for them, opportunities for them, happiness for them, because emotional attachment expands beyond personal desires. It creates genuine investment in another person's journey. Their future becomes important because they have become important. Perhaps one of the strongest indicators of all is consistency during difficult seasons. Anyone can be attentive when everything feels easy. Anyone can be affectionate when circumstances are perfect. But difficult seasons reveal true priorities. Stress, challenges, uncertainty, life transitions. These moments test relationships. When a man continues showing up through those seasons, it often reveals something profound. Because consistency during difficulty requires genuine care, it requires commitment, it requires emotional investment. The relationship matters enough to remain a priority even when life becomes complicated. And that type of consistency is incredibly meaningful because it demonstrates that feelings are not dependent on convenience. They are rooted in significance. Ultimately, the deepest signs are not always the loudest. They are found in the patterns that emerge day after day, week after week, month after month. They appear in the effort he makes when no one is watching. They appear in the patience he shows when challenges arise. They appear in the trust he builds, the support he offers, the attention he gives, and the way he continually creates space for the relationship within his life. Over time, these actions tell a story that words alone could never fully capture. A story of appreciation, emotional investment, admiration, trust, and growing love. When a man secretly sees someone as the love of his life, that story becomes visible in the countless ways he chooses the relationship again and again, allowing his actions to reveal what his heart may have known long before he ever found the words to say it. Allowing his actions to reveal what his heart may have known long before he ever found the words to say it. And perhaps that is one of the most important truths about love. The deepest feelings often develop in silence before they are ever spoken aloud. Long before someone says, "You mean everything to me," there are usually hundreds of moments where their behavior has already been saying exactly that. A man who secretly sees someone as the love of his life often begins making choices that reflect a faden of emotional investment. Even he may struggle to explain. He becomes more intentional, more aware, more present, not because he is following a relationship formula, but because his feelings naturally guide his attention toward what matters most. One of the ways this shows up is through emotional consistency. Consistency is often overlooked because it isn't dramatic. It doesn't create viral moments. It doesn't always make for exciting stories. But consistency is one of the strongest indicators of genuine emotional attachment. Anyone can be impressive occasionally. Anyone can create a memorable moment. But consistency requires something deeper. It requires intention. It requires care. It requires a desire to remain connected over time. When a man repeatedly shows up, repeatedly follows through, repeatedly invests in communication and connection, he is revealing priorities. And priorities tell us what holds value in someone's life. Another sign is that he begins noticing changes that others miss. A slight shift in your mood. A difference in your energy. Concern you haven't fully expressed. A challenge you're quietly carrying. Why does he notice? Because attention follows significance. When someone becomes emotionally important, awareness naturally increases. He pays closer attention because your experience matters to him. This awareness often allows him to recognize things before they are openly discussed. And that kind of attentiveness is rarely accidental. It is often a reflection of deep emotional investment. There is also a growing desire to create emotional safety. Emotionally attached people want the people they care about to feel secure around them. They want honesty, trust, comfort, openness. Not because they want control, but because they want connection. Connection thrives where people feel safe enough to be themselves. A man who sees someone as the love of his life often becomes increasingly mindful of creating an environment where authenticity can flourish. Because genuine connection requires more than attraction. It requires trust, and trust requires safety. Another powerful sign is that he becomes increasingly interested in understanding your perspective. Not just hearing it, understanding it. There is a difference. Many people listen with the intention of responding. Emotionally invested people listen with the intention of understanding. They want to know how you see the world, why you feel the way you do, what experiences shaped your beliefs, what matters most to you. This curiosity reflects respect. Respect is one of the foundations of lasting love. Because when someone deeply values another person, understanding them becomes important. There is another fascinating shift that often occurs. He begins viewing challenges as shared experiences rather than individual problems. When emotional attachment is shallow, people often think in terms of my problem and your problem. Deeper attachment creates a sense of partnership. Challenges become things to navigate together. Victories become things to celebrate together. Growth becomes something to support together. This shift reveals a powerful emotional transition. The relationship is no longer existing on the edge of his life. It has become integrated into how he experiences life itself. Another sign is that he becomes more appreciative of your unique qualities. Not just the qualities that initially attracted him. Qualities that make you who you are. Your character, your values, your way of thinking, your resilience, your compassion, your determination. As emotional attachment deepens, appreciation often becomes more specific, more personal, more meaningful. He begins seeing things that others may never notice. And those qualities become part of the reason the relationship feels so valuable to him. There is also an increased willingness to be patient during misunderstandings. Misunderstandings happen in every relationship. No two people communicate perfectly all the time. The question is not whether misunderstandings occur. The question is how people respond when they do. When someone is emotionally attached, they are often more willing to pause, listen, clarify, and work toward understanding. Not because conflict feels enjoyable, because the relationship is worth protecting. They recognize that temporary frustration should not be allowed to damage something meaningful. And that perspective often reveals a level of emotional maturity that strengthens the connection. Another important sign is that he starts finding comfort in your presence. This is different from excitement. Excitement is wonderful, but it tends to fluctuate. Comfort is deeper. Comfort means your presence creates a sense of ease, a sense of peace, a sense of familiarity. When someone becomes emotionally attached, being around the person they care about often feels grounding. Life can be chaotic, stressful, unpredictable, but meaningful relationships provide stability, and that stability becomes increasingly valuable over time. There is also a growing desire for emotional honesty. Many people spend years hiding parts of themselves out of fear of judgment or rejection. But when trust grows, honesty becomes easier. A man who sees someone as the love of his life often becomes more willing to share what he genuinely thinks and feels. Not because vulnerability is easy, because authenticity becomes more important than maintaining a perfect image. He wants to be known, and he wants the relationship to be built on something real. That desire for authenticity is often one of the strongest indicators of emotional depth. Another revealing sign is that he begins making sacrifices without keeping score. This is important. Healthy relationships involve give and take. But emotionally attached people don't approach every interaction with a calculator. They don't constantly measure who gave more, who texted first, who invested more effort this week. When someone matters deeply, contributing to the relationship often feels natural. Helping feels natural. Supporting feels natural. Investing feels natural. Because the connection itself has become rewarding. There is also a tendency to seek your presence during important moments. Think about the people we instinctively want around us when something meaningful happens. A major achievement, a difficult challenge, a personal milestone, a life transition. The people we think about in those moments are often the people who matter most. When a man consistently wants to share important experiences with you, it often reflects emotional significance, because meaningful moments create a desire for meaningful connection. Another sign is that he becomes increasingly grateful for the relationship. Gratitude is powerful because it reflects awareness of value, awareness of significance, awareness of what someone contributes to your life. As emotional attachment deepens, gratitude often grows with it. He begins recognizing how much the relationship enriches his life, how much support it provides, how much joy it creates, how much meaning it adds. And that recognition often strengthens emotional bonds even further. There is another subtle but important shift. He begins investing in the future of the relationship rather than simply enjoying the present. Enjoying the present is important, but emotional attachment naturally encourages future-oriented thinking. He wants to build, strengthen, develop, nurture. Not because he feels pressure, because he sees potential. He sees something worth investing in, something worth protecting, something worth growing. And perhaps this is where the deepest sign of all emerges. A man who secretly sees someone as the love of his life does not simply value the relationship for what it gives him today. He values it for what it represents. A meaningful connection, a trusted companion, source of understanding, partnership built on mutual respect and care, possibility of a shared future, possibility of continued growth, possibility of building something lasting. When someone begins seeing a relationship through that lens, their actions inevitably begin to reflect it. They become more intentional with their words, more thoughtful with their choices, more consistent with their effort, and more invested in the emotional well-being of the person they care about. They pay attention in ways that feel natural rather than forced. They support growth rather than fearing it. They protect trust rather than taking it for granted. They continue showing up even when life becomes complicated because the connection has become part of what gives their life meaning. Over time, these choices create a powerful pattern, one that reveals a depth of feeling far beyond attraction or temporary excitement. A pattern built on respect, appreciation, trust, admiration, and genuine emotional investment. And while those feelings may not always be expressed in perfect words, they become unmistakably clear through the steady, consistent actions of someone who has come to see another person not just as important, but as one of the most meaningful and irreplaceable parts of their life. As one of the most meaningful and irreplaceable parts of their life. When someone reaches that point emotionally, something else begins to happen. The relationship stops being measured by moments and starts being measured by meaning. This is a profound shift. In the early stages of attraction, people often focus on experiences, the excitement, the chemistry, the anticipation, the novelty. All of those things have value. When a man secretly sees someone as the love of his life, his focus gradually moves beyond those temporary emotions and towards something much deeper. He begins valuing the connection itself, the trust, the understanding, the friendship, the emotional safety, the sense of being known. These become the things he treasures most. Because lasting relationships are not sustained by excitement alone. They are sustained by significance. And significance grows every time two people consistently show up for each other. Another sign that these feelings have taken root is that he becomes more intentional about growth. Not just the growth of the relationship, his own growth as well. This is something many people overlook. When someone deeply values a relationship, they often become more aware of the areas where they can improve. They want to communicate better, listen better, support better, love better. Not because they are trying to become perfect, but because they understand that meaningful relationships deserve effort. A man who secretly sees someone as the love of his life often begins asking himself important questions. How can I become a better partner? How can I create more trust? How can I strengthen this connection? How can I contribute positively to this person's life? Those questions reveal emotional investment, because people rarely seek growth for things they do not value. There is also a greater appreciation for emotional intimacy. Physical attraction may spark interest, but emotional intimacy creates depth. It is built through conversations that go beyond the surface, moments of honesty, shared fears, shared hopes, shared dreams. The gradual process of allowing someone to truly know you. When a man sees someone as incredibly important, these moments become priceless. He values the conversations that last longer than expected, the discussions that reveal new layers of understanding, the moments where vulnerability creates connection, because emotional intimacy creates a sense of closeness that cannot be manufactured. It develops through trust, and trust becomes increasingly valuable as feelings deepen. Another revealing sign is that he starts seeing your success as something worth celebrating. Not because it benefits him, because it benefits you. This is one of the clearest indicators of genuine care. When someone loves deeply, they do not compete with the person they care about. They cheer for them, they encourage them, they support their ambitions. They feel proud of their achievements. A man who secretly sees someone as the love of his life often experiences genuine happiness when that person succeeds. Because emotional attachment creates a sense of shared joy. Your victories matter to him. Your growth matters to him. Your progress matters to him. And that kind of support is incredibly meaningful. There is another shift that often occurs. He becomes less concerned with impressing you and more concerned with understanding you. This may seem like a small difference, but it changes everything. In the beginning, people often focus on making a strong impression. They want to be admired, respected, desired. But deeper feelings create a different priority. Understanding becomes more important than impressing. Connection becomes more important than performance. Authenticity becomes more important than image. Because when someone truly matters, the goal is no longer to appear perfect. The goal is to build something real. Another powerful sign is that he begins finding value in your perspective, even when it differs from his own. Many people only enjoy agreement. Emotionally mature attachment goes further. It appreciates perspective. A man who deeply values someone often becomes curious about how they think, how they solve problems, how they view situations. Even when opinions differ, he respects the insight, because emotional attachment creates admiration not only for who someone is, but also for how they see the world. That respect strengthens the connection. It creates depth. It creates partnership. There is also a growing willingness to weather uncertainty together. Every relationship encounters uncertainty, unexpected challenges, changes in circumstances, difficult seasons, moments where answers are not immediately available. When feelings are shallow, uncertainty often creates distance. When feelings are deep, uncertainty often creates determination. A man who secretly sees someone as the love of his life becomes more willing to navigate difficult moments together. Not because he enjoys challenges, because the relationship matters enough to work through them. That willingness is often one of the strongest demonstrations of emotional commitment. Another sign is that he begins seeing ordinary routines as meaningful. This is one of the most beautiful transformations that occurs in lasting relationships. The extraordinary becomes wonderful. The ordinary becomes special too. Simple conversation before a busy day, sharing thoughts about everyday experiences, laughing about something insignificant, checking in after a long day. These moments may seem small from the outside, but emotional attachment gives them weight, because the value is not found in the activity itself. It is found in the connection being shared. There is another important indicator. He becomes increasingly aware of the impact his actions have on your emotional experience. He considers how his words affect you, how his choices affect you, how his behavior affects the relationship. This awareness reflects emotional responsibility. And emotional responsibility is often a sign of genuine care. Because when someone becomes deeply important, their feelings matter, not as an obligation, as a priority. A man who sees someone as the love of his life naturally becomes more mindful of how he contributes to the emotional climate of the relationship. Another fascinating shift is that he starts finding comfort in mutual growth. Some people fear change. They worry that growth will create distance. Emotionally secure attachment often produces the opposite response. Growth becomes exciting. He wants to see you evolve, learn, expand, achieve. And he welcomes opportunities to grow alongside you, because he understands that healthy relationships are not static. They evolve, they deepen, they strengthen through shared experiences and individual development. There is also a deepening appreciation for reliability. Reliability may not sound romantic, but it is one of the most attractive qualities in any lasting relationship. Knowing someone means what they say, knowing they follow through, knowing they can be trusted. These qualities create emotional security, and emotional security creates room for love to flourish. When a man secretly sees someone as the love of his life, Reliability becomes increasingly important, not because he wants perfection, because he wants trust. And trust is built through consistency. Another sign is that he begins imagining how different areas of life could be experienced together, not just special occasions. Everyday life, challenges, successes,
adventures, transitions. The future begins feeling more complete when imagined with your presence in it. This happens because emotional attachment naturally influences vision. When someone becomes important, they become part of how we imagine tomorrow. And that inclusion often happens long before it is ever spoken aloud. Perhaps most importantly, he continues choosing connection even when there is no immediate reward. This is where genuine emotional attachment separates itself from temporary interest. Temporary interest seeks convenience. Deep attachment values connection. Even when life is stressful, even when schedules are busy, even when circumstances are difficult, he continues investing, continues communicating, continues showing care, continues making room for the relationship. Because the relationship itself has become meaningful enough to justify the effort. And that is what makes these signs so powerful. Individually, they may seem small. Thoughtful message, remembered detail, supportive conversation, consistent effort, willingness to listen, desire to understand. Together, they create a pattern that reveals something profound, a pattern that shows the relationship has become woven into the fabric of his emotional world. Over time, that pattern becomes impossible to ignore. It shows up in the way he prioritizes connection, in the way he protects trust, in the way he celebrates your victories, and in the way he remains present during challenges. It appears in the respect he demonstrates, the patience he offers, the curiosity he maintains, and the consistency he brings to the relationship. These actions are not random. They are expressions of value, expressions of appreciation, expressions of emotional significance. And when a man secretly sees someone as the love of his life, those expressions become increasingly visible, creating a foundation built not merely on attraction or excitement, but on genuine admiration, deep respect, emotional intimacy, unwavering support, and a sincere desire to continue building a connection that grows stronger, richer, and more meaningful with every passing day, every shared experience, every challenge overcome together, and every choice to keep investing in something he believes is truly rare and worth holding on to.